All right. The last part of this chapter is going to be about romantic art, romantic literature. Whenever we hear about romantic or romanticism, you think of like a love movie or something like that. And that's not at all really what romanticism is. So we're going to talk about what romanticism is, what it meant, how it really, really went along well with all the nationalism, liberalism, stuff like that, the Revolutionary Age in the early to mid 1800s that was going on. So it was considered the artistic expression of liberalism, and it'll last from about 1790 to about 1850. Some of that art that we looked at during the French Revolution and Napoleon, it's considered neoclassicism or French classicism or romanticism. Kind of tough whenever art transcends different boundaries like that, but it does. So um, a lot of romantic art dehumanized industrialization, which is like what we're going over right now in class, and we'll talk about that. A lot of romantic art was about the individual. Cities were becoming bigger, and there was more population, more overcrowding, and so individuals were really trying to grasp at straws to hold on to their individuality during this time of change and population boom, and moving to the cities and bringing in all this new technology. I really like romantic art. In fact, I think I like it a little bit better than Renaissance art. I'd love to do this more in class and go in more detail over it, but we just don't have the time, unfortunately. So we'll cover this really well like this. A lot of good stuff in here. If you like art, you'll probably find yourself liking a lot of this, maybe wanting to go back and or look at some of this or research some of this a little bit more. So some of the things that made up romantic art were these three things: emotion, passion, rationality. And a lot of stuff was going on. Nice sound effect there. A lot of stuff was going on through the Enlightenment, and the Romantics started to almost rebel against that. They believed that civilization corrupted the individual, and that technology and overcrowding and population boom all corrupted the individual. And they didn't really like all this new technology and stuff. They were kind of rebelling against the Industrial Revolution. So the essence of human experience is like the most important thing according to romantics. Human knowledge is a puny thing compared to other great historical forces. Basically, we don't know anything and we act like we do. Romantics, one thing that they didn't really like about the Enlightenment was that all of that belief in individual rights. They believed that that was kind of selfish. They were more into communal sharing of resources and land and stuff like that, which is weird because they also glorify the individual. Um, so they're kind of ironic. One phrase that you got to know to understand romantics, or that you need to keep in mind and remember and know: engaged and enraged. Romantic artists, romantic authors were engaged and enraged. Engaged doesn't mean to be like ready to get married. Engaged means like they were involved in their environment, in their world, and they were ticked off about it. So enraged means to be angry, and engaged means to be joined into, like involved with. So the romantic artist was engaged and enraged, engaged in the world around them, paying attention to what was going on, and really, really mad about it. That's what made them a little bit different. Right here is a really great example of romantic art. It's one of my favorite pieces. They were also obsessed with nature and the forces of nature and the power of nature, and how humans were basically like ants in the grand scheme of things at nature's control. Individuality, epicness, glory, a lot of cool stuff. So one guy that you really got to know about romantic art to really understand it is Caspar David Friedrich. You're going to see a lot of Friedrich work, and he will be probably the go-to. I would say he's about like the Da Vinci of, the Romantic period. So he's going to do a lot of stuff that we're going to look at. I won't break this down like the way that we would in class and talk really about everything. I just want you to be able to see this stuff. I'll tell you a few things here and there about these different pieces and these different artists, and pull some things out for you to think about. But, you've got everything that a romantic piece of art wants right there. Well, you got a guy that is apparently woken up right at the crack of dawn, ascended to this like craggy outpost, this rocky outcropping on top of a mountain, and he's looking just as the sun is rising over all the fog melting away from the valley below and the mountain peaks. And it's really a beautiful painting. It's awesome. So we've got the glory of the individual, the power of nature, the mystery and the specialness and the epicness and the monumentalism of nature going on. So that's a really good piece. romantic art. They believed in the rugged individual, that we could overcome great things, but we were also at the mercy of great forces that we couldn't control. So the individual and the dreamer, individuals have unique, endless potential. Self-realization comes through art. Another awesome piece by Friedrich here, The Dreamer. Well, we got, man, that's romantic. Not in the sense of love, but in the sense of individuality, appreciation of nature, rugged individual. That guy, yeah, it looks like early in the morning again, he's gazing out over a field of some barley or some type of grain. He's got a couple of farm buildings in the distance, a barn or two, maybe his home, and he's just leaned up against the fence, taking all that in, looking at the glory of his land, the beauty, probably contemplating about all the work he's got to get done that day, but how lucky he is to get to do it there, and how beautiful his scenery is. So that's The Dreamer by Friedrich. Maybe my favorite piece of romantic art, and you'll probably hear me say that about 11 billion times because I really like a lot of it. But this right here is called The Solitary Tree, again by Friedrich. Even though we aren't depicting a human, we're seeing rugged individualism. We're seeing an individual rising up against all odds. We've got these other little cusps of trees out here to the left and to the right, and then right here we've got just this kind of ugly, broken, misformed tree rising up in the middle of nowhere by this little gathering pool of water. But there's something special about it. It exudes toughness. It exudes individuality. It's grown where no other trees are. Really nice scene there. There was a guy that used to paint on like KET and PBS named Bob Ross. Some of you guys may know him, but I think he was done painting before here all his time. But he used to be on the TV whenever you'd wake up early on Saturday mornings, and he was the guy with the big afro that talked really calm and painted happy little clouds and happy little flowers and trees. That painting reminds me of something that Bob Ross would do. He passed away a few years ago, and that made me really sad because he was a big staple of my childhood, waking up on Saturdays and watching him paint mountains and clouds and flowers and stuff. So anyway, another thing that you see in romantic art is the power and fury of nature. So we just saw some like really nice, calm, serene scenes that show the beauty of nature. Now we're going to see like the wrath of nature and how we are just at the mercy of nature all the time. So the glorification of nature, peaceful, restorative qualities exude in nature. You know, you can't find serenity in a factory or in a big city. And nature is awesome, powerful, horrifying, glorious. There's not a lot that we can do, and you're going to see some of that right here. So, got a guy named Lutherborg. He's painting an avalanche in the Alps. You can see some helpless climbers or hikers there, and these almost look like clouds. What it is just a plume of mist and steam coming up from all this avalanche falling down the mountain. So that looks like clouds, but it's snow racing down the mountain. Probably not steam because it would be too cold for steam, but mist definitely coming down the mountain at these helpless hikers. So that's a good one. This one right here, to me, is incredible. It's a guy that we really don't talk any about other than this one painting, Eichenbach. But man, the resolution on this isn't great for some reason. I don't know why, but whenever I show this in class, if I blew it up and put it up on the smart board, if I didn't tell you any different, a lot of people would just think that it was a photo, not a painting. So this is sunset after a storm on the coast of Sicily. You can see the waves down here in the bottom left are just terrifying. The tide is up. The waves are churning. We got some boaters trying to get in out of this swell. We've got some clouds dissipating after a big storm. We've got the sun just peeking out over that little rocky outcropping. That's beautiful. That's a ton of talent. These guys were every bit as talented as the guys during the Renaissance. You just don't often hear a lot about them or put them in the same breath. Another one got here, Francis Danby, the deluge or the deluge. You'll hear that word sometimes. A deluge is a really powerful storm or a really powerful rain. So that would be a good word to add to your repertoire of words in your vocabulary. Instead of it's raining really hard, it's a deluge outside. So again, we can see some guys caught up in this, trying to survive this. Another really, not really the forcefulness of nature, but the serenity of nature right here. Friedrich again, Tree of Crows. Just what it is, just what the title suggests it is, a tree of crows. Nice and relaxing there. Shipwreck by Joseph Turner. He's also a pretty famous guy, almost as famous as Caspar David Friedrich. But again, got this churning ocean, these huge swells, these huge nasty waves, and you've got these guys just holding on for dear life, just trying to survive a shipwreck. Another one, The Raft of the Medusa, Theodore Géricault, another important painter. The Eruption of Vesuvius by John Martin. John Martin is an English artist. We'll look at a couple other pieces of his work a little bit later, but a lot of you all may know the story of Vesuvius. It was a huge, huge volcano that was smack dab in between two really thriving Roman cities. One was Pompeii and the other was Herculaneum. They were both really close to Vesuvius and a lot closer than they should have been because they knew that Vesuvius was active. But apparently they thought that Vesuvius was a god and not a dangerous active volcano. Pompeii was built a lot closer to the base of Vesuvius than was Herculaneum. And Pompeii famously basically got wiped off the planet by the eruption of Vesuvius. When this thing went up, it blew the lid off. And, a lot of times I think things are exaggerated. And whenever a volcano erupts, it's often a lot of times different in real life than what you would expect. But from historical accounts of things that I've read and seen, I used to be really obsessed with this, if you can imagine that. And I read a lot about it and watched several things. And apparently, this painting's kind of spot on. Apparently, it just blew the lid off of this mountain. Lava up in the air, lava pouring down the sides. More than the blast and the lava, what really destroyed Pompeii is they were kind of downwind from Vesuvius, and all that ash and toxic gas and fumes and all that stuff that came from within the earth settled on Pompeii, and they got buried under like 25 to 30 feet of ash and dust and rock, and then the lava started to seep down as well. It blotted out the sun for apparently like several days. Herculaneum got it bad too, but not apparently like Pompeii did. Not too long ago, I think around 30 or 40 years ago, they really, really made an effort to start to excavate Pompeii. And what they found is fascinating. You can find this stuff like on Google, or there's all kinds of like TV specials about it. They found a lot of people that were like died right there. They found a couple that was holding hands that whenever they excavated their body, they died holding hands laying down, and they've been holding hands now for about 1,500 years. Found people laying in bed, found people in the middle of the street that apparently were running to try and flee and just got buried under this hot ash, probably died of asphyxiation because they couldn't breathe before they got buried by the hot ash. But basically, the ash worked to mummify their bodies, and they were perfectly preserved in the streets and in their homes. And whenever they started to excavate Pompeii, it was really cool because they found things almost just exactly as they were. It was like literally frozen in time. Wallpaper on the walls and bowls of food and stuff on the tables and documents and things like that. They've just now, in the last few years, opened it up to tourists and cleaned it out. And they've still got some work to do, but that is a really fascinating story, a really cool place that you can look into if you're interested in things like that. Next up, the new technology is dehumanizing. So these romantics did not like industrialism. Right there is a really cool one. Joseph Mallord, William Turner, a very important English author, or not author, but artist. We'll look at a couple other pieces by him. Basically, that's supposed to be a train. Rain, steam, and speed. Trains are speed. Trains use steam. And you can just see a bridge over in the background, kind of like a train railway. You got the smokestack of the train with a little steam, coal exhaust coming out of it. And really, it's blurry. You can't make a lot out. And that's the point that Turner's trying to make is that all this stuff speeds up life, and we need to slow down and smell the roses, so to speak. Life is going too fast. This industrial lifestyle is making us live beyond our means and live at a higher rate of speed than we should. There's a few details. You can see the train a little bit better. Another one, The Slave Ship by Joseph Mallord, William Turner. Again, got this schooner in the background, got waves, got this stuff, probably, as the title would suggest, taking slaves to the New World or something. A few details. Looks like we might have a trident down here, so we might have a little Greek or Roman mythology included. Romanticizing country life. They really, really appreciated country life, the Romantics did. And that was part of nature. Another guy that we really need to know is John Constable, 1817. This is Flatford Mill. If you see a little setting that just looks like a little village or a little farming community, odds are it was John Constable. He was an English artist. Constable and Friedrich are the two most important artists of the Romantic era. We'll look at pieces by them a little bit more as we go as well. Again, the cornfield, the individual, harmony with nature, the beautifulness of nature. It doesn't have to be epic or merciless or powerful. It can just be a scene like you might see, in your own backyard. You got some animals here, some sheep or some lambs. Can't really tell, but they're going on into a pasture. Got a little boy laying by a little drinking pool, getting a sip of water. Got a couple people in the fields, I guess, leading this herd into the field to graze. Another one by Constable, the Haywain, good example. Gothic, romanticizing the Middle Ages. They went back to the Gothic era, or the medieval era, to kind of borrow and steal some of their things. They were obsessed with Gothic architecture. So the Renaissance was like a revival of Greek and Roman art and architecture. The Romantic period will be almost like a revival of Gothic art and architecture. Whenever I say Gothic or whenever you see this, it doesn't mean like a style of music or style of clothing like we would think today. Gothic meant like Dark Ages, Middle Ages, medieval. So you'll see a lot of stuff that looks like appreciation of the Middle Ages, and they did that. Revival of past styles. So the Romans were obsessed with Greek and Roman art and architecture. The Romantics were obsessed with Gothic, Middle Ages, medieval, Dark Ages art and architecture. You won't see so much the art being reflected, but you will see the architecture being reflected. And they did love to go to medieval ruins to write poetry and paint for their art. I wanted to be able to get this knocked out in one segment or one section, but we're not going to be able to do that because we're running into 17 minutes right now. And for your sake and my sake and the sake of uploading things, I don't really want to go too much over 15 minutes. So we're going to break this, kind of cut this in half. I'll do the other one next, and these two will complete our chapter 23 stuff. So we will pause here and pick up later.